Well, good morning, Friday morning, everybody, in Empowered Soul Network. Are you getting ready for the eclipse? There's all kinds of buzz and jazz and pizzazz about the universal energy happening in this spirituality that's going on in all the cultures all over the world. And can't think of a better person to, with the rays of the universe shining down on her, than connecting with my wonderful friend, great colleague. We've known each other for 50 years, I think it is, Kathleen, 1973, 74, when we first connected. Kathleen Ellis, calling in from Albany, Georgia. And I'm really excited to talk with Kathleen today because back in the beginning of March, when we first started Empowered Soul Network, late February to March, Kathleen was one of the first people that actually came on and we did an interview. Is one of the first ones we did. And I just wanted to circle back around because so much has transpired since then. The group has grown, and Kathleen has such a great message. So I thought it'd be great to reprise that interview. So welcome, Kathleen.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate the opportunity to to share and have fun communicating and we'll just sort of see what
Yeah.
transpires and how I'm inspired and am inspiring, I hope.
Yeah, Kathleen is a spiritual educator. She's been a representative of the Way Shows College for years, senior professor with the college, and a I don't think you're quite retired yet, Kathleen, but a master physical therapist. She's had always great insight from me and my bones and my physical body. So, Kathleen, what has been inspiring to you lately in what you've been doing and seeing and experiencing in your travels and things in the world?
Well, for me, the thing that's always inspired me, sort of floated my boat, is service. I really enjoy the opportunity to be of service. Of course, it has to be solicited service. I'm not, I really don't want to be involved in, helping people who don't want to be helped. And I remember being a teenager, and our class assignment was to come up with a career. And because my mother was a math teacher, I picked out this, I, I would imagine was a super boring thing called actuary science. And I studied that. But my girlfriend's mother worked in the medical field, and she was trying to inspire her to be a physical therapist. And I didn't know what that was. There's very poor media about physical therapists. There's doctors and nurses, but never physical therapists in the storylines. And anyway, as she shared about it, I was thinking, well, I really want to be a teacher. But I'd already figured out that my classmates, in a lot of cases, didn't really want to learn what the teacher was teaching. That didn't seem like much fun or of service. And I was hearing about, well, people who have challenges physically, they really do want to learn. They want to get back to their mobility. And I'm probably one of the few who went to college knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And when I was out in my beginning career, it was very much of service. And that issue was that when I came home, I didn't know how to be of service to myself. I was recognizing that when I was sort of outer directed, be of service to others, that was great. But how to be my own best friend. And I'm like, oh, that's sort of a missing piece. And in the physical therapy world, there's an internship. It's called an affiliation. And I had met a woman who shared about a community program she was involved in Nashville, Tennessee. And she communicated that it was a group that got together and they communicated with angels, and that they also were learning and growing. And I remember thinking, well, when I get to where I'm going, which I didn't know at the time where that would be, I want to get involved in that. It took me 2 years, but I finally found what Dr. Francisco Cole had started called the Inner Peace Movement. And I immediately went to that program. I had been looking for a long time, lots of different sources, and it really fit the bill, what I was looking for. I was finding out about that I had a team of angels that I could work with personally, and they would really help me to learn and grow, and that there was a community I could get involved in. I think more and more today's mental health crisis is talking about the power of community. I think it's exciting what y'all have done with this Empower Soul Network, because you're creating a community that helps people work with that soul part of themselves, which is so missed in today's society.
Right, right. So, Kathleen, back in those earlier days, what were some of the things that you were actually feeling inside? Like you talked about, taking care of yourself and that first. What were some of the feelings that you were having? Because a lot of people might be able to resonate with that. And then your exploration, what then did you start feeling when you started to develop that communication and more?
Well, I think one of the things I had, we all do whatever our parents have taught us. And their parents, of course, are doing the best that they could. They're passing on what they were taught. But I was sort of taught to be reserved and to be suspicious. And I remember coming, I was definitely made that decision that first night of the presentation that I was going to take more steps. Came back that second night, and there was a very friendly lady there who registered me. And she asked me, "Well, how was your day?" I'm like, "Well, why does she want to know?" I just, that was how it was. And, there was more about being cautious. And so that was one of the things that, I eventually freed myself of, is being more outgoing, being less reserved, being what I would consider my true self, allowing that to come out. By then, uh, physical therapists nowadays have to go to college for 7 years and get a doctorate. I went 4.5, but I still had a lot of training in that intellectual part of life. And I remember that first presentation, it talked about the balance of thoughts and feelings and how important that was, and that could lead me to mastery. All of those were a real key for me. I'm like, well, I want mastery. I want to be in control of my situation. I want to make choices for myself. So I just really hung on to that. And of course, with the physical therapy background, balance is a huge key. So that was like a hand in a glove. And recognizing as I got into those first group sessions that people didn't think the same as me. They didn't process information the same. Of course, their experiences weren't the same, but it was amazing to find out sort of my natural way of working with things and how it worked positively for me, and how maybe it didn't work positively for me. And that's that balance and out of balance again. So it's
Mhm.
been a fascinating journey. And I'm just so excited that we've refined our tools and made it easier for people to really start to step into that true feeling part of themselves.
Right. I'm curious what your take is on, but I was really caught by that, the thought of cautiousness when you're out. And I think some people, they do that because they're not sure, of what is going to be coming towards them. Yeah, how have you, or what are some secrets or keys to having that detached discernment to be aware and yet that freedom? How do you navigate being aware of the boundaries and yet being free in all of that?
Well, I think probably one of the things has to do with fear. We had a situation in our community just recently where a little boy is 6 years old and he gets off the bus. And normally his older sisters walk him home, and it's maybe a block or so. Well, he felt like this person in this black car was trying to abduct him, and ran home scared to death. It was a huge community thing. Well, at the end of the day, several days later, what it really was is he had had the stranger danger talk with his parents the day before. And, he had that big fear, and then his sisters weren't there, and he saw a car that normally picks up their children at the bus stop every day. He never noticed it before, but now he's got this fear. Now he notices this car and he thinks it's going to abduct him. Bottom line of it all is, a lot of fears. I like one organization says fear is false evidence appearing real. So the hesitation and, that there's this big blob of this is possibly could happen. And then there's this little tiny blob of what actually happens. And learning how to, what's the worst that can happen? Is this going to make a difference in 5 years? And there's this continuum of under concern, concern, and over concern. And the fact that I have the ability and I can teach others the ability to really work with their spiritual team, often the question I'll ask, do I have any need to be over concerned about this with my car or with my body, etc.? And then if they're giving me feedback, no, you don't really need to be over concerned, then, I can take some rational steps. Then I'm stepping out of fear and into, okay, what is this, in your opinion, what are the steps that I can take to, if this is an issue that I need to resolve at this time? And maybe it isn't even the right timing to deal with it. Saves a lot of time.
Yeah, right on. Unpack the ideas of under concern and over concerned and I guess clear concern, true concern. What are some of the symptoms of under concern that people might feel and experience? What are some of the traits of being overly concerned that people might experience so people can recognize that, and where does the balance come into play there?
Well, let's start with the balance point of true
Okay.
concern. That's, just really having reverence and respect for my body, for my environment, for the people that I'm meeting and interacting with, for the whole world. This is our planetary home. We did a lot to get here. So there's something to respect about this. And Earth Day, I think, is coming up later in April, maybe a couple weeks. But just doing that, but to have that true concern for everyone, that soul part of everyone is just so important. I think some cultures say, I see you. Then the under concern is the person who totally walks by the homeless, totally walks, just they're on their phone, paying attention to something right in front of them. They're just not observant, not aware, not reverent. Of course, there's issues with trash and issues with, people just maybe being isolated. Maybe they're in that cautious bubble that I used to be in. Now let's talk about the over concern. In a lot of ways, it's sort of like that helicopter pilot parent, that gets totally involved, totally into all their children's business, all their children's choices. And it doesn't have to be in the parent-child relationship. It can be in everything. Over controlling, not really allowing other people to be who they are. And then also worry and anxiety fits there because they're going to be over concerned about the possibility of what can happen. Well, I really think that we have tremendous control in our lives. And whatever we think about and spend time thinking about and quote unquote energizing, that's what manifests in our lives. If we're going to, my husband at the time when we lived in Florida, he had an over concern about his car. And I never did, you know. And then he was the only one in the whole neighborhood whose hubcaps were stolen. You know, but you know, whatever you keep thinking about and energizing is going to happen. So it's recognizing, oh yeah, you know, my thoughts and feelings do have power.
How would you help or suggest that someone go about um, finding the connection or the reservoir of energy that you've been talking about if they're beginning their search or if they feel like they've reached a plateau and there's something more? How
Mhm.
does somebody go about beginning to make those next connections?
Well, I think they have to really tune into themselves and dig deep. What is it that really inspires them? I love the Horatio Algier stories. Those are the stories of the person who had nothing but had a goal, whether it was Walmart to create this huge conglomerate around the world, or um, the Olympic athletes and what they've done with, you know, they've had that dream to go to the Olympics, or all of those individuals who sort of dreamed big and followed it through. And I guess the thing is, you have to start with your feeling part. And that's really hard because today's society, in our culture of North America, we spend a lot of time. How do you think about that? What do you think about that? You know, and very little in bringing out that true feeling part that deals with involvement in life and fulfillment and that kind of thing. And once they have that real solid sense, you know, there's some tools out there that luckily the Way Shores College has been wonderful enough to let me and other people train to provide those tools for others, tools where they can find out what their specific way of living their life purpose is all about. And we call it a spiritual thrust. This made a big difference for me to use that spiritual thrust as my pivot point and to be able to have an awareness and a direct communication with my team of spiritual helpers. It's not that they're going to live my life for me. I've tried that; it doesn't work. You know, they're a mentor. They give me advice and they help me, and sometimes in the after action event of, okay, angels, well, now why did that car accident happen? And you know, and that kind of thing. That's another great tool to have. A third tool is a tool that has more to do with understanding your innate policies that are different from your parents, most likely, and following through with those three things. It starts to be, you know, you're building yourself a structure to launch forward and be having more awareness about that feeling part. It's interesting. There's not many schools here in North America that deals there that much with the feeling part. Some of the training that people might get with hands-on healing or healing work help to some extent, but then again, it's more that outer directed versus healing yourself. And that's so important too, because that's all we really got. And the interesting thing is that the part of us that we really have, that state of consciousness, that's eons old. And it's what we build on. I like Dr. Cole's phrase always was, it's your spiritual real estate.
Hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. It's kind of like having your own do-it-yourself kit, spiritual do-it-yourself kit.
It
Take
is.
with you wherever you are.
And you need other people. Other people are sort of that catalyst. That's what I found out, like in the group sessions, that I would come with sort of an inkling of what I wanted, and I couldn't even put my words on it. And then hear somebody else sharing, and then that's my answer. That inspires me, that what I needed. And it's all a setup by spirit to And some people might use the word God instead of spirit. I I have difficulty saying the word God because it puts me back to being this little kid in church with this big father in the sky with a long beard instead of this all-encompassing universal love type of energy that is spirit. So I
Beautiful.
work with that. That terminology helps me to have more of a sense of being one with all things.
Beautiful. This is just wonderful insights, Kathleen. Really appreciate your sharing, from your journey. How can people reach you and get in touch with you?
Well, I do have a website. It's called liveintwoworlds.com. The reality is we do. We live in two worlds. We came here to this physical world because it's one of the most advanced schools in the universe. We need to play the game here on planet Earth. Yet at the same time, we're always that spiritual being that we've always been and always will be. So it's that balance there. So they can contact me there. And it's also K Ellis Two Worlds um, at Facebook.com is my email address. So
Beautiful.
I love being of service. I love passing on the tools that somebody passed on to me. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to, it's fulfilling. I 50 plus years as being a physical therapist, but a lot of cases I'm helping people after the fact, after they've had this health challenge. What I want to do is work with people before the fact, help them to stay healthy, wealthy, wise, bring out their inner wisdom, because it's really a like attracts like situation. It took me 45 some years in this program to get at this level of consciousness that people are actually at right now. So now we can meet and we can, journey some together, maybe. I don't know.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
It's
When we wrap up, guys, Kathleen, put your contact information in the comments underneath the video, and that way people can reach you. And everybody, reach out to Kathleen Ellis. She's got some wonderful tools and amazing insights and wisdom from being a soul living here on planet Earth. So there you go, Empowered Soul Network. We've got other events coming up. There's a meet and greet coming up here in another few hours, and I think Kathleen's going to be on that. So feel free to join us, and we will see you soon. Kathleen, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's always fun to sit and share and just to allow the flow of spirit to be here.
Stick around for just a minute. We'll wrap up here and then chat afterwards. Have a great day, everybody.